Happy Wednesday, everybody. Ariya, Massoudi back for another Seminole Sidelines special guest today here on this Wednesday afternoon. It's Chip Baker, none other than the big shooter himself. We've got a great show planned for you. Those of you watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, we appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. And those of you who are listening via the podcast realm on Apple, on Spotify, everywhere else you get your favorite pods, we appreciate you as well. As always, subscribe to the Osceola.com and Seminole Sidelines every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And more times than not, we are live and taking your questions and comments and interacting with you. Getting set for a fun football season coming up in a little over 6 weeks. We will be back on the gridiron. But for today, we will talk all baseball because the big shooter himself, after 39 years, is calling it a phenomenal career. Chip, appreciate you first and foremost for joining us here on Seminole Sidelines.
Well, good afternoon here, and I appreciate you having me.
39 years, man. I mean, that is a career and then some. And you've done it in so many different realms and forms. Assistant coaching, hands-on, director of baseball operations for many years. Chip, when you look back at 39 years, what do you think you'll take away the most from having such an incredible career with so many people?
The relationships with people is what it's all about. Being able to tie my name in, and I'll tie my name in forever with Florida State University. I'm just so proud to be a Seminole, and the outpouring of support from this past weekend has been wonderful. Jokingly, the only discussion I had was with my mother, 91 years old, and she still thinks I'm probably the 25-year-old coach. I said, Mom, everything's going to be good. And finally, after I told her, I said, Mom, I'll get to come see more often. And I think she was okay with that.
No doubt. I'm sure you'll have plenty more time for family. I know you got your daughter over in Jacksonville, I believe, and you have some more trips to be able to go see her. And I hope you're not going to stay away from the ballpark now. I think we expect you still around Hauser many, many times.
I am not going to be a stranger here. One discussion when I kind of dropped this on Coach Link last week, I said, if you let me come out, I'll drag the field. I'll work on the field. I don't care. It's 39 years is 39 years, and all I could get out was it's time. And again, I was very appreciative of every coach I worked with, and administrators and coaches and players, and these great fans here at Florida State are second to none.
Chip, did you leave the manual or the handbook for how to keep the field pristine for those who come after you? Because I know you had a Raker Chaser Nation who you groomed and you molded into being a beast of an equipment crew. There were many times you just did it yourself now. There were many times you said if you want something done right, you do it yourself.
Well, if you saw me out there messing on the field because there was nobody else to do it, I was the last choice. And it was ironic that we were short-staffed the last weekend. There was other things going on, and they asked me to water the infield. All right, 2,800 whatever ball games I've been around here at Florida State. I've watered it before practice and before camps and things. I've never watered the ball field before a ball game because I told this to Link Jarrett back in the fall. I said, I don't like to water the field. He said, why? I said, I'm not going to do it like you want it, but it was a hot, sunny day, and I flooded it. And I joking to the managers. I said, you're going to tell your grandchildren you were with me my last weekend at Florida State. The last home game. I said, and we made that field wet, but it was great. We won, so that's all that matters. I want to know.
No doubt. And even when we lost, the field crew and the field was better than everyone's in the country. And so they never took an L, right? Raker Chaser Nation has never took an L.
That's true.
Chip, what came to the decision to hang it up? I mean, 39 years, the 3 ball coaches. What was the final thoughts and what made right now the right time to step away and start a next chapter of your life?
I've had the discussions with my brother, my daughter Katie, and Jason Denner, my oversight, has been instrumental with this. And our discussions have been going on for about a year. But basically pulling the trigger, I mean, sometimes you got to leave. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And I didn't have to do it. I talked to Jason and I said, I'm not staying on 40 just for 40. I said, it's been a great run and be able to get this out. I'm not gone yet. I'm going to be here for a couple months working details and some things we're trying to get done here. But I spoke to Jason Dennard on Thursday morning, walked in his office. He wanted to come to mine. I said, no, I'm coming to yours. And I walked in his office and I shut the door. He looked at me and it was that look. He knew it was time. And that's all I could get out because I locked up about 3 times in 20 minutes. Seeing Jason, I saw people in the hallway I did not speak to. And I'm not like that because normally when I see somebody in the hall at Florida State, I know everybody and I talking to them this and that. I wanted to go upstairs and speak to Michael Alford. And Michael's been great to me. He calls me coach. I don't know if anybody knows about it, but I coached against him when he played. He was on the team at Mississippi State in 1990. And I reminded him of that the first time I met him. But he has been very supportive. And again, I went to him a year ago and I said, if the new guy doesn't want me, I'm fine with it. And we came back over and informed Link, and the rest of it is what happened. So.
And again, we talk about over 2,000 career wins as well, Chip, and you were right next to 11 for a lot of them. I mean, for really all of them, just about. But what were there any games or any certain milestones where you just feel like that will be one that you talk about for the rest of your life?
My first year coaching third base at Florida State, 1986, pretty good ball club. A lot of pressure on Florida State. Had not been to a regional. Coach Martin's tenure. He went his first year, 1980. This was 1986. Hadn't been in 5 years, and everybody was looking, and everybody is pointing. And again, it was how many years ago it was? 38 years ago. When the ball hit the wall in left field against South Alabama under a 3-run double, I knew it. We're going back, and we went on a pretty good run there in the late 80s and all through the 90s. And you go back through and the relationships and working with players and teams and coaches, it was just an honor to be part of Florida State all through that big run.
And I mean, you've just seen so many, right? And you've seen players come through, Chip, that have left their legacy, not just at Florida State, but then go on to have excellent major league careers. For you, is there a certain player or two that you will say, man, I knew way back when he was still just a baby and we were still teaching him the fundamentals of how to be a great baseball player? Who are the guys that stand out to you?
I mean, I can go back countless guys, but there's one guy that sticks out. The greatest baseball player my 2 eyes have seen. The kid came to camp as a junior, was hitting balls across the street into the circus. I remember Coach Martin telling Jamie Shoup, can you go try to hide that young man for a year? And it was J.D. Drew. I mean, bottom line is the best baseball player, a 5-tool guy. And I had the opportunity to be around him for 3 years. And again, we're very close to this day. And the year he had in 1997, unmatched. It was unmatched in what he did. And again, to me, one of the best baseball players I've ever been around and coached.
And JD goes on to have just an incredible MLB career as well. Chip, a lot of people also, they talk about Buster Posey, right? And the career that he had, and coming to Florida State, first as a shortstop, turns into a catcher, and then has arguably a Hall of Fame career with the Giants, winning 3 World Series. Was there a moment where you knew that Buster had the goods to be a big leaguer? Maybe you didn't predict that he'd be the Hall of Famer potentially that he is. Was there a moment you said that kid's going to play for a very long time?
Buster hit 4 home runs as a freshman, as a shortstop. I told a professional scout, I've known him for a long time. I said, see that kid at shortstop? He will catch in the big leagues. And that's the only statement really I made to him. 3 years later, he reminded me, hey, you told me that 3 years ago. But go forward to Buster's year in 2008. I would occasionally, during games, I would do tours. And I always did a tour starting at the top of the second inning. And we're in a room with a bunch of guys, and they're all, high school. Nowadays, you can't do things like that with the rules. But I had a group in the clubhouse, showing them the clubhouse. And one kid raised his hand going, why did we meet here in the second inning. I said, Buster Posey always bats third, and I am not going to miss an at-bat. And I'd watch his at-bat from the dugout or wherever I was, and then it was tour time, and then I tried to make sure I saw the rest of his at-bat, because the year he had in 2008, pretty good ball player right there.
No doubt. I mean, big shooter. I remember I was in high school the day that he played all 9 positions, and I remember school had gotten out early that day, and it was a late May game, I think. I don't remember exactly. We might have been playing Savannah State or of that like. And I remember coming to the ballpark, and the fans had heard Buster was going to play all 9 positions that day. And to watch him go from each base and then to come in at the end of the game and throw 96 from the mound to close that thing out. I'm younger, and you've certainly forgotten more baseball that you've seen than I'll ever know. But that to me was just like, man, if you can play all 9 positions and look like you know what you're doing, that's pretty impressive. That guy is so special. What do you remember about that day when he played all 9? Because if I'm not mistaken, didn't Mike Martin Jr. also play all 9? You had seen that happen before.
I've seen it happen several times here, and again, just be able to, an athlete to be able to do it. Mike Jr.'s arm was sore for a few days. He didn't tell anybody but me. And so we didn't do a lot of work at the weekend, a few days afterwards. Buster, I was just, the year he had in 2008 and being a closer, I was just so concerned every time he got on the mound, worried about the arm, this, and this, and everything else took care of itself. You go back to the ACC tournament in Jacksonville, and it's the format where we played a ball game. It did not matter. It was a game that did not matter. Buster was dealing with a quad injury. He did not start, and I didn't know he didn't start until you look out there. I don't look at the lineup every day. But when he came up to pinch hit in the 7th or 8th inning, crowd was a good crowd in Jacksonville. It was a Saturday night, and the buzz when Buster came out of the dugout, I can remember it like it happened yesterday. Everybody, Buster. Everybody start. He delivered.
Did.
I think it was a 2-run single, put Florida State up, won the ball game, came back, and ended up going to the World Series in 2008.
What a year that was. And another player I wanted to ask you about, because certainly it was when I was in school and I had never seen anything of that like on campus. And you guys still remain in touch, and he loves you very much to this day. But Jameis Winston, when he played baseball on top of the football stardom, had you ever seen anything like that in your career? I mean, fans lining up at away games for hours to try and get an autograph. I mean, certainly in baseball, you've had your stars, but how often does a football star who has that type of platform, right, playing for your baseball team, have you ever been a part of anything like that? And you have any funny stories about Jameis's time as a baseball player?
Not just a football star, a Heisman winning football star. I mean, it changed everything we did. I was watching TV one night, and some of the talking guys on late night, and they said, what's one thing you want to have? And the guy goes, a collectible. What would you like to have? And he said, I would like a Jameis Winston game-worn baseball jersey. Well, I ran that thing back, took my phone, videotaped it, came in, and I went to Coach Martin. I said, Coach, I am not going to make it, asking your permission, but I'm not going to make a big deal about this. But Jameis will not carry his jerseys to the ballpark because, we travel. The kids carry the uniforms or in a bag in the hotel room, and everybody gets dressed whatever they're wearing that day. That year, Jameis Winston did not have to worry about it. And I told our clubhouse guys, either you carry it and hang it up or I'm going to do it. And he takes it off when the game's over. So his jersey did not disappear. You never know. So that was 2014. So that's what that one, but he's a special guy, special person. We still got a great relationship. Got a big hug from him. I think you were in the booth with us last year when he walked in the day he graduated. Did not want to go on the air, but he wanted to come by and say hello.
Yeah, it had a pretty mean slider, if you remember. He could snap that sucker in there.
He did.
And he was pretty good. And I remember we asked him on that broadcast, do you still think you could spin it if we gave you a baseball these days? And he said yes. I believe him. I do believe him. And Jameis off to bigger and better things now in the NFL. You talk about 11, Chip. What a career he had. Arguably the greatest coach to ever do it in college baseball. For him in 2019 to be able to make it to Omaha in the final year, right? Is that a memory you'll have that ranks up there for the rest of your life?
I get tears thinking about it. 2019, we go into the media center over there in Moore Center. We're on national TV, ESPN, and we were the last team in. We were the last team in 2019. And we're going to Athens, Georgia. We go up there, things get hot. We go to restaurants, walk in, walk out. The goal was less than 30 minutes. In and out, food's on the table, boom. So it got to be a competition. It started on the way to Athens. It happened in Athens. We go to Baton Rouge, same thing. It got to be, a little competition with that. Get the kids in and out. That was my rodeo. And I got them going. Same thing in Omaha. We got them going. And again, to go to Athens, Georgia and win a regional, go to Baton Rouge, whoa, you don't do that.
No.
You don't do that. And we did in 2 ball games. I get chills right now thinking about it because I thought, when I came off the field, I ran summer camps and I waved goodbye to the team 3 times, and I wasn't really happy saying goodbye to the teams when they go to Omaha and I'm out here running camps. But hey, you got a job to do. But 2019, I got to go to that rodeo, and it was the most fun I've had. Going out there to Omaha and seeing the people and the relationships, and to be with Mike Martin, it was very special.
I know I recently was not too long ago talking to Reese Albert about that LSU series out there, and of course the home runs that he hit, and then Mendo having the game winner the next day. That's an environment. I think that there are college football stadiums that don't have the juice that the Box had that weekend, and in general. Is that as good of an environment for college baseball that you've been in? And just how much sweeter was it to knock off that storied program? And like you said, you don't do it. You don't just walk in to Baton Rouge and beat them in their house twice.
I had a buddy of mine came into town, got him tickets, and when we sit with them, I sat with them for about an inning and a half, and I didn't like being in that environment because I like to be where I can control what I'm around, and I was in our dugout, and I stayed down there, and again, won the first ball game, boom, 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 got to the next ball game, and I was at the end of the dugout. I'm staying out of the way, but there's a video of me running to Coach Martin, and I'm hugging him, and I'm saying I thought I would never see Omaha again. Where Florida State closed on. I thought I'd never do it. You never know how long it's been and what was going to happen. It was this last year. It was just wonderful to be able to, when see Mike Martin, he used to go in the clubhouse and slam his hands on the table and say, we're going back. Well, we're sitting around Baton Rouge out there in the middle of the outfield team meeting. We didn't have a table. So luckily, Andrew DeGood brought up some ball buckets, and I stacked them up. That was Coach Martin's table when he slammed those hands down. I never saw 19, 20, 21-year-old kids so happy to be able to go to Omaha with Coach Martin for his last year. It was a wonderful experience.
Never forget Antonio Velez coming out of the pen and just the shutdown that he had into extras. I mean, that's one of the all-time pitching performances for Florida State, too. And wow, 2019 is special. It kind of seemed too, Big Shooter, sometimes sports don't follow a logic, like that team specifically hadn't played consistently well all year long. And like you said, they squeaked in to the tournament, but there just felt like there was something written in the stars for 11, for his final year, that they were going to find a way to get hot, that Tim Becker was going to come off the club baseball team and find a way to contribute. I mean, things that you could legitimately put in a documentary, right? Like things that you make a documentary about and say that this wasn't supposed to happen. But that's what makes it so great, is that I think, like you, and you probably agree, we didn't have expectations. I think everybody was like, hey, this team made it. Whatever happens, let's enjoy it for 11. And what a ride that was.
Yeah, going back to Tim Becker, a walk-on. The kid practiced in the fall. I mean, they're basically going to get ready to cut him. And somewhere I found a rule that they changed the rules, and I went and talked to our compliance office. I said, I'm not the smartest guy, but there's a rule came out for this, and it worked out, and he was on the team. And he got hot late and hit those 2 home runs. I got talking to the grounds crew, which I'll talk to anybody, that. I got both the home run balls for Tim Becker when he hit both those home runs in that ball game at Georgia. So it was pretty cool. Great experience for him. Again, Tim Becker walk on with 2 home runs.
Yeah, just what against the Emerson Hancock and Cole Wilcox,
Yeah,
2 kids that are first rounders and top 10 picks, and oh my goodness, just one of those runs that you could legitimately make a movie about, I think, and it was wonderful. Big Shooter, did you talk to 11 about retiring? Had you let him know before the announcement? I mean, what conversations had you had with a guy that you had spent so long serving for so many years?
I spent some quality time with Coach Martin this year, and came out Buster Posey Day, got on the field with Buster, and again I brought Buster. Coach Martin's in my office upstairs watching the game, and I brought Buster in here, and I just walked away. I said, let these two have that conversation and let them go, and time passed, whatever. But jokingly, Coach Martin said a couple of years ago, he goes, "Pards, spring chicken either." That was the funniest line I've heard, but I hadn't discussed it with him. But again, somebody asked me, I said, 39. I mean, I had an umpire to call me up midnight on Thursday night, late Thursday night. "Why, Coach? Why?" I said, it's 39. 39 years has been a great run at Florida State, and Link gave me a great opportunity. I dropped the bomb on him a little bit last week, too. I said, "Link, I'm going to be around till you run me out, but I just want to get this out, let the coaching staff, let the administration do what they need to do, and see how it goes." So, yeah.
Another thing I wanted to touch on too, Chip, was just earlier today, earlier this week, I should say, Pedro Grifol and Eddie Perez, Eduardo, a good friend of yours, Pedro now with the White Sox, and a good friend of yours as well. They get elected to the FSU Athletics Hall of Fame. I have to shout out Coach Sue Semirao, who gave me a chance to be on her broadcast team out of college. So I have to throw that in there too for Coach Sue. But Coach Grifol, Eduardo, who's now with ESPN, I mean, just they're so deserving, right, of being in the Hall of Fame for Florida State Athletics. What does that mean to you as a friend of theirs to see them get this honor?
There's not a week goes by that I am not communicating with Eduardo Perez. And every other week, every couple of weeks, I'll send a text to Pedro. We're close as any player I've ever been around. I mean, I know where Eduardo went in Omaha. I know he's there, sending things during the broadcast. And, if someone's sitting up there in that great seat, I need a photo. And I always get a photo from him. And, again, to be able to converse with him about the Hall of Fame, I mean, it went out to those two guys, Pedro and Eduardo, back in May. And again, they released it this week, which is not much going on, which was good. But the head coach makes the call. I don't make the call. Nobody, the head coach, Link Jarrett, got an opportunity to make the call to both Pedro and Eduardo Perez. And they were his teammates. When Link was a freshman, they were a junior. And they were his teammates. And for him to make that phone call, and finally they sent me the text. I said, "I know. I've been waiting for you to call me." And it was wonderful. But to think about those two guys changed college baseball, and they might have changed professional baseball, mainly because they came in the program. Eduardo was a very raw player. Pedro was a very polished catcher. A little chunky, but both those guys got in the weight room and got stronger, faster. The baseball skills took over, and they were the first ones at Florida State in the spring of 1990, their sophomore year. Again, everybody lifts weights in off season. They got with Coach Martin, got with Ricky Slate, the strength coach we had. It was a graduate assistant. They worked out during the year, not around baseball, but in mornings or evenings. And they were the first guys to really get into lifting weights and what you're supposed to do, put together a program. And they got bigger, stronger, faster. And all of a sudden, Coach Martin saw the results. And that changed Florida State 30-some years ago. And they started lifting weights. Now, we all have strength coaches that work out during the season. And from those two guys working at Florida State, those strength coaches all got major league jobs, because they've been in a program to test it out here. And again, those two guys changed baseball. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Two incredible people too, right? And it was cool to see Pedro get his chance as a manager in the MLB, with the White Sox. And Eduardo has been such a fixture. I think his celebrity now is what he does on television, even more so than what he did as a baseball player. But two guys who love Florida State very much. Chip, a couple more questions and we'll let you go.
Okay.
One thing I've always wanted to ask you and pick your brain on, I've asked this to great baseball minds, especially about where the state of college baseball is right now. And you talk about two guys who changed the game, but there are many things that are changing the way we see collegiate athletics, right? And you got the portal now and NIL, and it seems like, to me, from my perspective, that the investment in college baseball is growing around the country, right? Whether it's programs putting money into stadiums and or budgets and or this and that. Where do you see this game going in the next 5-10 years? And how far has it come from when you started as an assistant coach with 11 all those years ago?
Well, where I'm started as assistant coach, now the assistant coaches are making what head coaches made 15 years ago, it seems like, and going with that, it's a lot of, head coaches got big time contracts and they get paid to win. And you throw in these beautiful stadiums these people are building. I mean, it's an arms race, but it's also, as you mentioned, NIL and all that is really, really changing baseball. And I cannot get my hands around how it's going to sustain over the years. I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows, but it's happening. You saw, again, a year ago, you had your toe in the water. Now you're about waist deep, if not going deeper into the water with the NIL, and it's out there. And it's not just baseball. It's all athletic sports. And, again, people producing and the opportunities they're getting, and people are putting up the money for it. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah, no doubt. And all right, well, Chip, hope we'll see you on TV in the future. I was going to ask you, my final question is, can we have you back in the booth? Do you have free time now to come join us in what we think is the best viewpoint, the best vantage point at Hauser, up there with the headsets on?
Well, I was back in the booth earlier today, and I had a Wi-Fi problem, so I had to come in my office. And again, this is a great venue to look out. But when there's a cloudy day out or sun's out, it's bright and gives you a bad background. All right, don't just keep that seat open to your right. That's all I'm saying. Let's see how it goes.
It'll be open, I promise you. And if we have to create a seat for you, we'll do that as well.
That's true there. I'll stand. No big deal.
Chip, you're the man. You've meant so much to me in my career. You've been a good friend to me, and you've watched me kind of grow up at Hauser as well, from a little baby that came to Florida State wanting to be a broadcaster. So thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your mentorship. And more than anything, we appreciate you for what you did for FSU baseball and joining the show, man. A lot of love.
Well, I appreciate you having me. And I said, I'm not going away. I'm just not going to be working here. So I'll be in the ballpark. I promise you.
Keep an eye for Big Shooter at Hauser next season. He's got plenty more time now to come chat you up as well and share even more stories throughout the 2024 season. All right, our next show, Friday at 12:30. I believe that will be heavily recruiting and talking about Mike Norvell's big recruiting weekends that he's had and what he's trying to do to close out the 2024 class and to continue to stay hot. But again, appreciate those of you watching on YouTube. Appreciate you on Facebook and Twitter. Please subscribe to the Osceola, and this will be available on demand on Apple and Spotify. And we will talk to you again very, very soon. That was Big Shooter. Right next to me, I'm Ariya Massoudi. Appreciate you again as always. And this has been Seminole Sidelines.